Good evening, Dolphins fans, or excuse me, good afternoon, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode here of On the Fin Side with Cat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all over social media outlets, as well as finfanatic.com and the Fansided Network. The Dolphins are dealt their first loss of the season. They're 27-15 to the Bengals last night. And we've got a lot to talk about. The major story, obviously, Tua Tagovailoa goes down, taken off on a stretcher for what seems like to be precautionary reasons. Things looked very scary last night, but the news has been a lot more encouraging here today. He's going to undergo an MRI, but has all use of his extremities. Doesn't appear anything's been broken. But Paul, we'll start there. Your reaction to that, and we'll dive deeper into that after that.
The worst part about that play is watching it. Tua had like 7 seconds on that play. There wasn't anything there. I wish he took off or just threw the ball away. The only sack of the night, and boy, was it a big one. That did deal a devastating blow. Bridgewater played well in relief for him. I'm just glad to hear that Tua is doing okay. I don't expect him to play next week, most likely. I do expect him to miss some time with this because judging by basically the involuntary loss of muscle usage that you could see with his hands in particular after the very obvious concussion, that's usually one that you're going to miss some time with.
Yeah, it sure does. And yeah, that's, again, to pour salt on the wound. Josh Tupou, 340-pound defensive tackle, has played, this was his 44th career game and his 19th career start. He has never had a sack until that one. And you said it seemed like 7 seconds he was back there. I timed it. It was 5.2 seconds, which is an eternity. And it's twice as long as it takes Tua to usually get rid of the ball. You got to live to fight another day. And I can't wait to see him back on the field, because for the season, after 4 games, if we were sitting here, if I had told you before the season that Tua would have a quarterback rating of 109.9 and the Dolphins were 3-1, we would have taken that every day of the week, given the schedule.
Yeah, and one thing I actually want to answer too on the Tua thing, because it's in the chat, is he did slam him hard, but that it didn't look like a dirty play, and it didn't look like one that should have gotten unnecessary roughness, given the situation. I'm not going to put anything on Tupou for that. You know,
Me either.
He hit the ground hard. He got whipped down. But again, it was one of those bang bang moments where it wasn't dirty. It was just unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on that. And yeah, speedy recovery. And here's some optimistic news here, is that I've mentioned the quarterbacks the Dolphins are going to be facing in their next 7 games now. Zach Wilson next week in 10 days. And the Dolphins have 10 days to rest up. Zach Wilson, Kirk Cousins, by far the best one we're going to face over the next 8 weeks. Mitch Trubisky, Davis Mills, Jacoby Brissett, Justin Fields, Jared Goff. Okay. Teddy Bridgewater is probably better than every quarterback on that list except Kirk Cousins. So we don't have quite the advantage, it appears, right now by losing to but the sky is also not falling here. But here's what I'm just irate about. Okay.
So before you go irate real
Yes.
quick, one thing that's going to be very, very important if Teddy's the starting quarterback instead of, I think I would like to see Skylar and Teddy battle it out in practice with a 9-day window to figure out who can reliably move this offense and who's on the same page as the receivers, because it was very obvious during Teddy's time, while he did better than I expected, that he and Mike Gesicki are 100% not on the same page.
You're right about that. And that's the big thing. I mean, there were several big plays in this game. That one, the interception by Teddy Bridgewater, it looked like Mike Gesicki, and they just weren't on the same page. I don't know. I can't say specifically who's at fault. It looks like that felt more on Gesicki. It looked like more of a back shoulder type of throw across the middle. So I don't know.
More
But
than that, though, third and 4, Gesicki has clear running lane for a first down if you just get the ball there.
Yep.
And instead, Teddy throws a floater. drive killer. Like there were a couple of times between the two of them where you could really see they weren't on the same page.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about it is if Gesicki stops, which Bridgewater obviously thought he was going to do, is that that's also first down and probably a bigger first down. So yeah, I don't know. It's fascinating. But my issue is this obsession that the media has with wanting Tua to have brain damage and for the Dolphins to be responsible for it. So they have talking points. That last night after the game, I'm watching, and Ryan Fitzpatrick, who spent time with Tua this week, was talking about how he was completely normal. They had a great conversation. Nothing was off. He was a little bit sore. On the NFL Network, they cut him off and they say, and whoever the woman was on there, I'm trying to remember her name, but cuts him off and says, "Yeah, but that's just what you saw." Like, I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand, unless I'm missing something. Why is there even investigation with this? Wasn't he taken back into the locker room for concussion protocol, and then an NFL doctor checked him out? Like, this is just to appease people. It's to appease people who, in the first 5 seconds of this happening, already determined that it was a concussion. I felt that way too when it happened. But for crying out loud, I mean, this is just to appease a bunch of nincompoops on their couch. It's embarrassing. And Adam Beasley said it perfectly for Pro Football Network here, former Miami Herald writer. Literally, the only evidence people have that Tua suffered a concussion is a 5-second video clip, which admittedly looked terrible. But my point is that should not be the totality of the conversation. That is exactly right. And he left the game yesterday because he was thrown to the ground by a 340-pound nose tackle who never sacks anybody.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of opinions out there, a whole lot of
Stupid opinions.
I'll agree with you on that. Now, if the Dolphins are found to be 100% negligent from this investigation, or something comes out of it, if it comes out that, and this is one thing I want people, you hit on an important point that kind of got glossed over a little there, which is an NFL appointed doctor, not a Miami Dolphins doctor, not the team training staff. An NFL appointed doctor last week cleared Tua Tagovailoa. The NFL is 100% cautious and overcautious at times, as need be, when it comes to concussions and head injuries. That's a necessary thing. None of us can argue that fact. It's a fact that he was cleared by not the Dolphins, but by an NFL third-party doctor. On top of that fact, it's you cannot diagnose a concussion from your couch. You can't.
Right. Oh, really? I based on what I've seen the last week, no, I think you're wrong there, Paul. I mean,
everyone's got all their opinions and sensationalize things to get likes and clicks, and you know what I mean. And at the end of the day, none of the NFL Network, ESPN, national media, local media guys have been in there checking him out physically. And that includes Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's had those conversations. He's hung out with him. He's a friend. You could see Ryan Fitzpatrick was shook at the end of that broadcast last night.
So let's recap here. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
We do. It's at the end of the day, there are facts and figures, and Tua has been checked out at a hospital. He had full use of his extremities, was able to take a flight home. If the concussion was as severe as it looked, I've got news for you. And this is a scientific thing. They would not have let him take the flight home last night. They would have made him wait, because with an head injury where there is worry about pressure on the brain, they're not going to send you on a flight right immediately after if there is any level of concern, because believe it or not, you're in a pressurized cabin, and the pressure of the whole reason you chew gum and pop your ears and stuff like that. It's no doctor in the world is going to be like, yep, take a flight home. They're gonna be like, nah, hang out here tonight. This is for your protection and safety. And the other thing too is you can very, very clearly and easily see how much Mike McDaniel cares about Tua. And everything I've seen of Mike, with him being a player's coach, somebody that cares about his players, you can't tell me if he was not 100% capable of playing due to the head injury piece, or if there was a head injury piece, he would have put him on the field. The other side of that too is, he got up wobbly. Guess what? Back injuries can make your legs wobbly. There's a lot of nerves in your back, and all the messages from your brain to your feet go through your spinal cord. And at the end of the day, a back injury can make your legs wobbly. It depends on what it is. And we don't have clarification. We have back injury. So there's a lot of factors here. And, one thing I love about what we do here, and this is where I'm going to toot our horn for a second, a little bit, is we don't deal in like the I feel when it comes to things like this. It's or trying to get the goddamn clicks by saying something sensationalized. You boil it down to the facts. None of us here, none of us in chat, none of the national media, none of the local media have those facts in front of them in a way that they're willing to display. And,
well,
anyway, back to you.
Yeah, I forgot what I was going to say here. That breaking.
I think you were going to say something about how much you love me and how amazing you think I am as a
Ian Rappaport. I'm just reading. Dr. Alan Sills on NFL Network, that as soon as the investigation on Tua Tagovailoa is finished, it'll be released to the public. We want to be as transparent as possible. What a joke. So the NFL is going to investigate their own NFL doctor and see if that doctor was lying to protect the Dolphins. And then if they were, they're going to punish the Dolphins. Do I have that correct?
Partially. Again, if that doctor was lying to the Dolphins as well, the way that they diagnose these concussions now as well, it's they literally take what is it? And again, I may misspeak here, but they basically take I think it's like a brainwave pattern or a brain function scan at the beginning of the season at various points during the season with these players. And then they have a baseline to compare to. So even if the doctor lied to them, the Dolphins training staff, if they had any suspicion, more than likely ran the scan and put it against the baseline. And I apologize, I don't have the exact verbiage in front of me for it.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the medical stuff.
Well, no, but that's something
what you're saying may be true. I don't know.
That is something that is out there publicly, and that is public information for how they handle concussions, or potential concussions, or suspicion of concussions. There are cognitive tests that they do related to that.
Got it. So it's. Yeah, and I think Tua is going to be out a little while. We'll see how long. And I make the point that if I can't speculate if Tua is going to be back in 2 weeks, if he's going to be back in 8 weeks, I don't know. But let's take one of the worst case scenarios. Let's say that he isn't back until the Bills game on December 18th. I think it'll be way, way sooner than that. But let's say that. Again, I list off those 7 quarterbacks that the Dolphins are facing with this defense here. And if they go 5-2 in those 7 games, we're sitting here talking about 8-3 with Tua coming back. That is in my mind, a worst case scenario as we sit here today. Knock on wood. Hopefully it doesn't get worse than that. So we'll see. But let's, as far as the game's concerned, when Bridgewater came in, I definitely noticed Mike McDaniel got a lot more conservative. And that the first play after Tua was sacked, the Dolphins had the ball 3rd and 17 at midfield, and Bridgewater comes in cold off the bench and just drills a 16-yard pass to Trent Sherfield, and it's 4th and less than a yard. I think under normal circumstances, the Dolphins don't attempt a field goal. I think they go for it. And I was kind of surprised that he didn't. But I don't really know what was going through his head at that point. And then later in the game, the Dolphins have an 88-yard drive with Bridgewater after that 65-yard Tyreek Hill catch. It's 4th and 2, and they kick a 20-yard field goal instead of going for a 2. Now, it's kind of revisionist history on that. If the Dolphins had kicked and made those field goals and ended up winning the game, we'd be saying it's a great move, but they didn't. So I don't know.
Yeah, and it's weird too, because in some ways I felt like McDaniel got more conservative, but in other ways I felt like he got a little more creative. I mean, we had everything from that shovel pass to there were a couple other plays mixed in there that it felt like he went deep into the playbook for, as far as like gimmicks and fakes that we hadn't seen him running with Tua in there. And maybe it's because of something he likes with Teddy's fakes. I don't know. But there were some intriguing play calls at first that I expected them to continue with throughout the game. But again, it's what it is.
All right. Yeah, I think Bridgewater is still one of the best backups in the league here. Obviously, a lot of Skylar Thompson talk. Having said that, look, Eric Ezukama was the star of training camp and preseason. He's been a healthy scratch the entire year. They're trying to slow cook a lot of these players here, and Skylar Thompson is one of them. Now, can he come off the bench and do better than Teddy? He might, but I don't see Mike McDaniel putting him in that situation.
Potentially, if Miami were to go with Skylar Thompson, I think that decreases the chance, and this is something people are asking about in the chat, but I think that actually decreases the chance of them utilizing Eric Ezukama early. I don't think they want a rookie receiver that they're unsure of, and this goes back to the conversation and answer that Wes Welker gave a couple weeks ago. They want to be, they don't want to have to worry about how both the quarterback and one of his wide receivers are going to handle the situation in that moment if they can help it. That would be a very unlikely scenario.
Right. Yeah, I'm very unlikely on that. And it's, Channing Tindall hasn't played a big role. He did get on the field for a few plays last night and was blitzing, but so interesting to see his snap count moving forward. But yeah, I mean, it's a veteran roster ready to win now. And Skylar Thompson probably wouldn't fit into that, but I'm glad he's on the team. And who knows, maybe we see him at some point this year. Offensively, the Dolphins combined with Bridgewater and Tua threw for over 300 yards. 2 interceptions, though, both by Von Bell. The second one, even though it should have definitely been picked off anyway, there's some speculation that maybe it should have been challenged. That ball at least touched the ground. I don't know if it would have been enough to overturn, but it deserved to be picked off. But you look at what Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, what they bring to the table. Tyreek Hill, 10 catches, 160 yards yesterday. On the season, he's got 31 catches for almost 500 yards after 4 games. What a massive addition he's been. And talking about, the quarterbacks the Dolphins are going to face and how I think Bridgewater in the next 7 games are better than all of them except one. Part of what factors into that too is you've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, and I'm expecting a big game from Jalen Waddle next week because there were a few key moments in this one where I felt like he played very un-Waddle-like, we'll go with. And one thing I want to go back and answer, and I know we're not fully done with our Tua conversation. It's going to be peppered in throughout the show. How can it not be based on the situation? Somebody put in that Tua must have lied to the doctors or lied to the trainers. They have protections put in place that prevent that. This is not a high school where you have to do some analysis and best guess. This is not youth football where you have to do some analysis and best guess and err on the side of caution. This is where they have doctors and trainers and equipment handy and right there to diagnose and catch these things quickly and immediately when they happen. This is not asking the key questions of like, does your hand tingle, like, or any of those things, or do you have a headache? This is beyond that. And no matter what Tua said, those scans and those checks are something that have nothing to do with lying or being honest in the moment.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, this isn't Varsity Blues.
Yeah.
With Billy Bob, you know. Yeah. So I'm done. I'm done with the Tua talk here. I've said what I needed to say. Wish him a speedy recovery. And at this point, there are some people that if he takes a snap before 2028, they're not going to be happy. So whatever. Yeah, I heard what Stephen A. Smith said too. I don't care. I don't care whatever comes out of his mouth anyway. So I'm not good in this situation either. I'm not even gonna paraphrase what he said. So offensively here, yeah, I mean, before Tua left the game, let's start out with the quarterbacks, and we'll go down position by position and talk about the others, and we'll go into the defense then. Tua had a really ugly interception. He also took that sack that put the Dolphins out of field goal range. Obviously, is injured because of it. That's got to factor into that. Also had some really pretty passes too. I mean, to Waddle, to Tyreek Hill. He was doing a great job of, and he and McDaniel really on the same page with how often to use that RPO concept as well. So, and just a beautiful pass to Mike Gesicki too for 20 yards when he was out of his own end zone. He's an incredibly accurate passer. He really is, and he's completing still about 70% of his passes here on the season. But yeah, I mean, the negative plays. I mean, Bridgewater has the interception. And I'd also say too, on that deep pass to Tyreek Hill, that was mostly Tyreek Hill. And Tua had the real two ugly plays. And at the end of the day, even with 300 plus yards, the Dolphins had no touchdown passes, 2 interceptions, and scored just 15 points. So
1 touchdown pass.
Oh yeah. Excuse me. Chase Edmonds. That was not a handoff. That was a throw.
Yep.
So overall, I'm going to go with a C+.
I'm right in the same neighborhood as you with that. I'm going to give a B-. You gave most of the good reasons. I'm going to give a B- for a couple of reasons, though. For one, while we can sit there and say, oh, the backup quarterback always needs to be ready and this and that, blah, blah, blah. Teddy's not getting the reps that Tua does during the week to come in where and when he did in the first half on behalf of Tua. He's got to play catch up, especially on a short week where they had to travel as well. And while there were some very catastrophic decisions in this one from the quarterback position, it was only a handful of plays. And they still completed a lot of passes, made a lot of good decisions as well. Teddy made a few things happen with his legs a couple of times. They did do a good job of avoiding any pass rush in most of the scenarios. And that's where I can give them the B-, but
Okay.
it's not enough as it stands right now, the way that they played last night.
Well, here's the good news too, is that's one of the best defenses you're going to face the rest of the year. The Bengals have a very good defense. It's a very complete defense. Yeah, people are talking about one stat I heard several times. I think it was on Amazon Prime, and I saw a tweet is that Tyreek Hill only had 1 catch for 7 yards against Eli Apple. It's like Chidobe Awuzie was covering him like the entire game. He had 10 catches for 160 yards.
And some additional yardage on the pass interference call.
Yeah. Oh, and we'll get to it in the special teams, but oh man, I loved seeing Tyreek Hill returning punts. He didn't do anything. He didn't do anything with him, but just being back there, Kevin Huber, a 13, 14-year NFL veteran, really good punter, kicks a 28-yard punt because he's so afraid to kick the ball to Tyreek Hill. Loved every minute of that. Anyway, getting off topic here. Let's go to the running back spot, Paul. I'll throw it to you first.
I thought Raheem Mostert looked very good, and Chase Edmonds added a touchdown in the receiving game. I'd like to see them get Alec Ingold a little more involved like we saw early on in the season. But again, there were a couple of times where Mostert was 1 cut away from taking it to the house. And I think he averaged 4.6, 4.7 yards a carry.
Yep.
And I'm not unhappy with the running game in this one. I think the line also opened the holes for him, but they made some very good decisions in the limited opportunities that they had between the two of them. And I can go with a B plus here for the running back position.
I'll go with a B for a lot of the reasons you said there. Yeah, most of it looked very smooth. There was actually running room, and the Dolphins, because they weren't playing catch up the entire game, they were actually able to establish the run. I really hope that they take a hard look at promoting Zaquandre White to the active roster. They need a bigger back in those situations. Third and one, Chase Edmonds had no chance, and he's not breaking tackles. Mostert's not going to break. He can break a few more, but not many. Definitely the best game from the running backs so far.
Ooh, one thing that they brought up in chat, and I forgot to mention that did hurt a little bit was Chase Edmonds dropping that touchdown pass.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I'm going to bring mine down to a B for that.
That's right. Thanks for bringing that up there. I blocked that one out. Because Joe and really too, you look at Joe Burrow and the Bengals on the first drive of the game, just marching right down the field, 9 plays, 75 yards, way too easy. In previous years, I think Tua doesn't respond like that. The Dolphins marched right down the field, and it should have been a touchdown. It was a perfect throw to Chase Edmonds, and we'd be talking about in the first drive, Tua with 70 passing yards and a touchdown. It's shame. So, yeah, at the wide receiver and at tight end position there, obviously Tyreek Hill, 10 catches, 160 yards. Jalen Waddle held without a catch in the second half. In fact, I think after the first quarter, he only had 2 catches for 39 yards on the day. Wonder how much that injury actually bothered him in this game. Tua is also obviously one of his best friends, so you got to wonder how much that weighed on his mind throughout the game. So I think we're going to see a different Jalen Waddle here throughout the rest of the year. Trent Sherfield, I'm really happy for this guy because, he's been, can I say, the butt of the joke over the last week? Anyway, I don't have good jokes.
Well, he almost blocked Chase Edmonds from getting in the end zone on that shovel pass.
I'll leave the guy alone. He's been through enough. So no, but I would have, if the Dolphins had lost to the Bills, this guy would have been remembered only for that the rest of his career, and he probably will anyway. But yeah, I'm very happy for him. Gets on the field, and he's clearly got a rapport with Teddy Bridgewater. Maybe it's because they're both second teamers there throughout camp. But 4 catches, 55 yards, a lot of them really big catches with him working back to the football. So he's clearly the third receiver now until Cedric Wilson comes back at least. Mike Gesicki, 2 catches, 23 yards. The one 20-yarder was a great throw by Tua. Nice catch by Gesicki, but there was also a 3-yard catch he made. This guy just cannot break tackles to save his life. It would have been a first down, but didn't break it. It would have been tough to get that first down, but still.
To be fair, if there was a better throw on that one, he got the first down, whether he can break a tackle or not.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. We got to put that on the quarterback. I agree with you. So we'll see what happens throughout the rest of the year. Cedric Wilson, I'm hoping, is going to be back next week. It's time that he starts. He gets back on the field, and he's only played 1 game, but let's see him earn his money. So Tyreek Hill takes this grade up significantly because of the impact he had on the game. I'm going to go with a B for the receivers and tight ends.
I'm going to join you on the B. And as far as Jalen Waddle goes, it's, a couple people said his head was probably out of it with the Tua injury, and that's possible. But the other thing as well is there were points in time where you could see Waddle limping during the game yesterday.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad he's got 9 or 10 days off to get healthy before the next game. It's, again, and like you said, Trent Sherfield played very well. Mike Gesicki, obviously not on the same page with Teddy Bridgewater in any way, shape, or form. And really, that's about it from the wide receiver positions. Easy, great. Tyreek Hill made some things happen, drew a very blatant pass interference call, and seemed to draw the eyes of the defense a great deal in this game, and it didn't seem to matter.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So offensive line now. Just 1 sack, and it was the most hurtful play of the game, obviously, to the Dolphins organization. I think late in the game, Teron Armstead, for the first time this year, I saw him struggle in the fourth quarter with his former teammate Trey Hendrickson from the Saints. But these quarterbacks had time to throw, and time to throw against a defensive line that's pretty good at getting to the quarterback. It wasn't all perfect, but when you look at what from the running backs, I mean, you look at 4.6 yards a carry from Mostert, and you look at just 1 sack on the day, and it was a play where Tua had over 5 seconds to throw the ball. Pass protection was good. So overall, I'm going to go with a B+ for the offensive line.
I'm going with an A- here. And the only really blatant play where I felt like Hendrickson handled my brain's blanking right now, Teron Armstead, was I think he had one or both hands up under Teron Armstead's face mask, incidentally, but still. And as a line guy, I can tell you right now, somebody's got their hands under your chin pushing up. Guess what? You're going backwards. And that was the one play he got walked back in the Bridgewater. And as far as the line play goes, I have zero complaints. I saw a lot of plays where linemen were going above and beyond to protect the quarterback position or to open holes. And Greg Little got beat a little bit by Hubbard, but Hubbard on a couple of plays where Hubbard got underneath him. But overall, Greg Little against Hubbard, if you told me that other than a couple of plays where he got underneath him and kind of got back there, I would take easy money on Hubbard over Little if you asked me that before the game. And Little did his job. Hunt did a great job. Connor Williams, I think, had his best game as a Dolphin. And again, no issues with Eichenberg this week.
Yeah, I'm right. I'm with you on that too. There were 2 plays from Greg Little against Sam Hubbard that were really ugly. One of them, he just got absolutely put in the ground, and a few Austin Jackson-y type of plays from Greg Little in this one. But overall, I still feel like he's at worst a good swing man at tackle moving forward. Hopefully he proves to be a little bit more than that at the right tackle spot.
I think he's earned the starting spot.
I'm not quite there yet, but
over Austin Jackson, I am.
Oh, over Austin Jackson, absolutely, I'm there. Yeah, with you on that. Is he a player that I may want to upgrade from after the year? Probably. Yeah. I like both tackle. I like having 2 strong offensive tackles. So defensive side of the ball, Paul. You look at the stat line, and you'll see, the Bengals 21 for 32, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, quarterback rating of 118. There's a 23-yard pass by Tyler Boyd thrown in there that I feel was really the turning point of the game. That's when the Bengals offensively really started playing well at the end of the third quarter on offense, because the first drive was really easy for the Bengals. But then after that, the next 7 drives, I mean, you had, other than the long touchdown to Xavier Howard or against Xavier Howard, T. Higgins roasted him on that one. I felt like between the first drive and the fourth quarter, Joe Burrow was struggling a lot, and the Dolphins had this defense figured out, and that's impressive. But the Bengals made the plays you need to make to win the game. And like I said, Tyler, I mean, I thought they had him figured out for many drives in a row. And then you had the Tyler Boyd 23-yard pass to Jamar Chase. And then Joe Burrow starts cooking after that. So on the defensive side of the ball.
Wait, are you talking about the front 7 or the secondary?
I'm talking about everything here, but I'm going to go with, I'm going to kick it back to you here for the specifics on the front 7.
For the front 7, I thought they did well overall. I really do. They made a bunch of plays to try to keep Miami in this game. They were getting back there to Burrow. Burrow made some good plays with his legs. I know they only had 1 sack on the day. I like the utilization of Jalen Phillips, where they moved him inside a little bit to push the pocket. Zach Sealer had a few big noticeable plays. And Landon Roberts, probably his best game as a Dolphin. And they stonewalled the Bengals on a few drives to keep the team in this game. And they also managed to do a very good job against the running game in this game. The Bengals and Joe Mixon Joe Mixon might have had 61 yards, but he only averaged 2.5 yards per carry. And it's something where they got in a lot of third and short, fourth. They attempted it on a fourth down. They got worried about going for it and took the points when they stonewalled him at the goal line, which Landon Roberts moved 2 defensive linemen and then blew up Kappa to set the table for AVG to come in and muscle Joe Mixon, who is a powerful, strong back, from getting into the end zone. And there were a lot of moments with that. And so I can easily give the defensive front 7 a B+. They didn't get the pay dirt as often as I'd like, but they were all over the place, all over the field. Christian Wilkins had a really good game. John Jenkins had a big stonewall stop. Jerome Baker had a good game again, not great, but good. And really, I think Landon Roberts probably fended off the Channing Tindall watch a little bit last night, which for anybody that's watched the show for a while knows is high praise from me.
I've never seen anybody be so good at one thing than Landon Roberts is on third and fourth and short, and not really good at anything else. But that's huge. I mean, you look at the defensive stops the Dolphins have made on short yardage over the last 2 games. 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Landon Roberts is the teeth behind all that. And that's a major, major compliment. And it shows he is definitely a good role player. Yeah, I'll match you on the B+ if I didn't say that already. Christian Wilkins and Jalen Phillips, I thought, had phenomenal games. And good for Jalen Phillips because he was really quiet in the first 3.
Zach Sealer. Don't forget Zach Sealer. He had a pretty damn good game too.
Yeah, he's pretty consistent. Wilkins and Phillips were the 2 that really flashed for me. And yeah, Phillips responding this game when he's been pretty quiet and doing so against Jonah Williams, who's he's kind of having a rough year, but has been a pretty decent tackle overall. I think is impressive. I'm looking forward to seeing more of this. And not only did Phillips get some really good pressure, he also had great containment against the run too. I loved seeing that. Wilkins, phenomenal game. Lived in the backfield. Just really good overall. Sealer was his usual solid self. Ogba's a little quiet, but I didn't see anything glaring that was bad. Jerome Baker, I really think over the last 2 games has had 2 of the best games and most complete games I've seen from him in a while. So nothing flash, didn't make any big plays, but I felt like he was covering a lot of ground, disciplined, you name it. Landon Roberts, we talked about. Melvin Ingram, a little quiet this game compared to previous games. AFC Defensive Player of the Month. How crazy would that have been when he was on the street in August? So defensively, I look at it from the standpoint that the Dolphins, with just 7 or 8 minutes left in the game, it only let up 14 points, and 7 of them came in the first couple minutes. I thought they spent most of the day playing really well on defense, just didn't come away with the big plays to win the game.
Yeah. Before you move on to the secondary, one thing I want to answer in chat about the front 7 is, in reality, the Dolphins linebackers have played pretty well. We've been talking about the fact that Jerome Baker's been playing well, and Landon Roberts 2 weeks in a row now, at least 2 games this season has flashed with big stops on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. Understanding the play calls. I mean, you could very obviously see the homework Landon Roberts did on 3rd and goal from about the 6-inch line, when you see him move the 2 defensive tackles, know exactly where he's going when he comes up in and just demolishes Alex Kappa, the right guard, which I think he gives about 60 pounds to Kappa, if not more. And really, really did a good job. And I am one of the biggest and toughest Landon Roberts critics, but there's a role for somebody like that on this team.
Yeah, there sure is. And as far as the run defense you talked about, you said Joe Mixon averaged 2 point whatever yards a carry in this. You look on the season, and not a lot is said on this because as far as run defense is concerned, Lamar Jackson pretty much ruined anything for the Dolphins run defense as far as getting any notoriety. But on the season, the Dolphins are allowing 4.15 yards per carry against the run. Well, that also factors in Lamar Jackson's 76-yard touchdown run against opposing running backs only this year. 73 carries, 222 yards, 3.04 yards a carry. against starting running backs, Damian Harris, Kenyon Drake, Devin Singletary, and Joe Mixon, you're talking 48 carries for 130 yards, 2.71 yards a carry. So that is a noticeable step up here from previous years where the Dolphins were always kind of middle of the pack in run defense. I don't think you have to be great at run defense, but 2.7 yards a carry to opposing starting running backs, that's a pretty good statistic. Now, having said that, the pass defense, and there's two ways to look at this here. Pass defense, 105 for 154, 68.2% completion percentage, quarterback rating of 106.6 because of 8 touchdowns and 1 interception. But I'll also say, too, the quarterbacks they faced, Mac Jones, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. Those last 3 are the murderer's row here of quarterbacks in the AFC. Next, you got Zach Wilson, then Kirk Cousins, then Trubisky, Goff, Fields, Jacoby Brissett, Davis Mills, Jimmy Garoppolo. Those are the next quarterbacks you're facing. I think the pass defense, especially with Byron Jones coming back, are going to feast.
They are. And one thing I'd add to that as well is, and I messaged you during the game about this, Miami went into, for a little while, a very soft zone against the Bengals. And that's not something that you can do against a team with the receiving core and quarterback that the Bengals have. That you watch them on that drive where they went into that soft zone, get eaten up until they tighten it back up again. And you're going to get beat occasionally trying to guard T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd. You are, and Hayden Hurst. But if you go into that soft zone against an offense like that, which was the one true mistake I saw from Josh Boyer in this game, you're going to give up consistent drives in those moments if the other team's passing the ball. It just those guys and that quarterback are too good at finding those holes in that soft zone, and that's just not Miami's style of play. Now, that said, Kader Kohu is brimming as a superstar for this team, potentially. He was all over the field tonight. Did he get beat a couple of times? Absolutely. Did he make some very sure tackles, whether it was on a wide receiver or a much bigger player? Absolutely. Did he have good coverage in most of the plays? Absolutely. Did Keon Crossan step up? Absolutely. Did Xavier Howard with a groin injury fail to manage to keep up on that first bomb? Absolutely. But Javon Holland is phenomenal back there. I thought Brandon Jones was mostly good. And Eric Rowe had a few key plays in this one. So I can give the secondary, I can give them a B+.
Interesting. I'm okay. I'm going to go. I think there were some bright spots. I'll say that. I'm going to go with a C because of the stats that I had said there. 21 for 32, 300 plus yards, quarterback rating of 118. There were some good moments, and you're right. Kader Kohu is certainly going to be here for a long time. There's no doubt about that. And he's really eased the burden of absolutely needing Xavier Howard and Byron Jones to be 100% all 17 games in playoffs. That's for sure. And Byron Jones, hopefully he is back here next week against the Jets. Kader Kohu, I thought, had a fantastic game, except for one of the biggest plays of the game. That was a 43-yard throw to Tyler Boyd. I mean, not much pressure on that play, kind of an unfair situation there. Xavier Howard, yeah, I mean, he had a groin injury, but he's also out there, and I'm not saying he's a shell of his former self, but he's having a harder time this year, and I think the injury's got a lot to do with it. But allowed a 60-yard touchdown. We gotta factor that in too. Brandon Jones early on had several missed tackles, then recovered nicely. Javon Holland, I think, had a fantastic game. Nick Needham was sensational in this one. I think over the last 6 quarters, Needham has just been amazing on the defensive side of the ball, and gets even stronger when he returns to that slot full time, which he's really been doing over the last 6 quarters too. He's so at home there. But yeah, I'm going to stick with the C on that, and I look forward to Byron Jones coming back.
And before you move on there as well, one thing with Kader Kohu on that long pass was he tried to jam Boyd, and Boyd unfortunately did a good job of avoiding the jam. And it put Cater in a catch-up scenario. So those things are going to happen when you're playing aggressively sometimes.
Yep. I'm with you on that. Special teams, I'll throw it back to you.
Good Lord. Blocked field goal. No real big returns. Thomas Morstead continues to have statistically his best season ever. Extra point dinked off the uprights. It's unfortunately special teams had some very deflating plays in this one. They didn't allow big returns or anything along those lines. But again, you can't get field goals blocked. You can't miss extra points. And this is 3 weeks in a row that there's been a major mistake on special teams. Going back to the Ravens game, allowing the opening kickoff return, going back to last week with the butt punt, going to this week with the blocked field goal and the missed extra point. It's not good enough right now. And Danny Crossman needs to step up with the special teams, and they need to get out of this quicksand that they've got going right now. I'm going to give special teams a C- here. Those missed or blocked moments were too critical, and we're just not flipping the field other than Thomas Morstead, who deserves a better grade than this.
Yeah. I'll, for those reasons, I'll go with slight step below. I'll go with a D+ on it. Yeah, I mean, that missed extra point, you knew at the time that could have made a difference in the game. I mean, your entire mindset is different, knowing that, yeah, I mean, it's not only a deflating play, but yeah, I mean, it changes the plays you're going to make throughout the rest of it. It didn't have as big of an impact as I thought it would, but yeah, it's still. But that missed that blocked extra or field goal attempt by Sanders as well. I mean, that was after Tua goes down. It's 3rd and 17. Trent Sherfield catches a 16-yard pass. It's 4th and less than a yard. I was hoping they were going to go for it. They didn't. They tried the field goal, and then they had the field goal blocked. Then I'm pretty sure the next play after that, or the next drive after that, was the 59-yard touchdown from Burrow to Xavier Howard. And that's, again, something that really flipped the game in the Bengals' favor, in addition to the Tua injury. So, yeah, and I love seeing Tyreek Hill back on punt returns. I love that he forced the Bengals to have that 28-yard punt. That was great. And Morstead is, I'll say, the best punter I've seen for the Dolphins since Brandon Fields. The Dolphins, besides Pilardi, have not historically had terrible punters. Pilardi hurt in so many ways. He couldn't hold the ball. He couldn't punt the ball. He couldn't do anything. But yeah, I mean, Morstead, 3 punts for 150 yards, in addition to the 74-yard free kick last week that ended up being the difference between winning and losing. So, yeah, I mean, I love this guy. What a fantastic addition there. But yeah, I'm still going with the D+ for this game. Mistake. There's so few special teams that plays in a game like this, and you can't have 2 or 3 mistakes. You're exactly right.
Well, and before we get to our player of the game, I'm going to go back to something that I just can't stop thinking about here when we play the Bengals. In the 2020 draft, when Miami was on the clock at number 30, and even leading up to the draft, there were 2 wide receivers I pounded the table for. One of them went before Miami picked at 30. The other went right before Miami picked at 18. Do you remember who that receiver was I was pounding the table for that was still on the board and went 3 picks later?
I can remember
Noah Igbenogany.
I can remember too. Both of the guys you're talking about at 18, CeeDee Lamb almost fell to that spot, and 3 picks after Igbenogany was T. Higgins.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember I was like, well, there's no room for T. Higgins. You can't get, well, he'd look pretty nice. Hey, I'm going to say this. You're wrong on that, because we wouldn't have Tyreek Hill. So I'm going to take the cheap out.
Well, why not?
Well,
why wouldn't we? The one we may have missed on would have been Jalen Waddle, because it may have shifted our draft position at that point in time. But I can't see where, with the same possibility on the table, Miami wouldn't have tried to make a move to get Tyreek Hill to make the same move.
Yeah, that's quite possible. And yeah, I mean, Higgins is a fantastic player. I said heading into this game, even though Chase put up more yards last year, Higgins missed a couple of games and still got to close to 1,100 yards. Higgins scares me more than Chase does. I mean, you saw in that 59-yard catch, what happened there. I mean, they're different players. They're both big. They're both incredibly talented. You're talking about.
But I'm pounding the table for our draft coverage and some of these guys we unearthed that, T. Higgins, while he went the top of the second round, was buried behind 6 or 7 other receivers that year on most people's draft charts.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Paul, your player of the game and your Coke Bus player of the game.
My Coke Bus player of the game, unfortunately, here has to be Mike Gesicki. Because he can't seem to get on the same page with our quarterback situation or make those big plays that like he did in the Ravens game a few weeks ago. He's got to get on the same page or get off the bus. But for now, I'm putting him firmly on the bus and even giving him control of the brakes so he can get himself off it if he can get on the same page as any of our quarterbacks.
Yeah.
It's the Ravens game is looking like an aberration for him this year thus far as that goes. As far as my player of the game, I am going to have my first repeat player. Tyreek would be the easy one to go with, but I'm going to have my first repeat player, and I'm going to give it to somebody on defense here. And without the play, even though he gave up one big play, but without his play, this game could have gotten blown wide open, especially facing a receiving core like they did this week. And for an undrafted rookie free agent to go out there and square up with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins on a down-by-down basis and really be effective like he was and be involved in run support still and come up and make some sticks even on tight end Hayden Hurst, I've got to go with Cater Kohu again.
Yeah, what was the game-changing play you were talking about? I'm just blanking on it.
Game-changing? No, he gave up the one big play. Was what?
Oh, got you. Okay, yeah. Besides that, yeah, I mean, yeah, I felt bad for him there because he had such a good game, and then let up that 43-yarder. But still, I mean, the talent is definitely there.
He's turning into the Javon Holland of the cornerbacks for me at this point. He's not there yet, but look at where Javon was at this point last year.
Yeah,
and he's ahead of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's amazing that, you look at Noah Igbenogany being inactive again, and it's like every type of defensive back has succeeded with the Dolphins. You've got Byron Jones and Xavier Howard forming, the best cornerback duo in the league. You've got draft picks, Javon Holland and Brandon Jones, second and third rounders, who are one of the best safety tandems in the league now. You've got undrafted free agents, Nick Needham and Cater Kohu, come in and immediately step right over him. It's ugly with him. As far as my player of the game, I'm going to bypass Tyreek Hill because I feel like I'm just going to choose Hill or Waddle every week. So I'm going to actually go with Christian Wilkins. I thought he was a handful at defensive tackle. I mean, he is unbelievably. When he was drafted, I was just kind of like, kind of a what you see is what you get type of player. He's unbelievably creative in everything he does. He's not a 10 sack guy. He's not 360 pounds and can ice skate, but just unbelievably creative and get in both against both the run and the pass. And he's always making plays, just like the other week when, 4th and 1, punches the ball out from Lamar Jackson. I don't know how that's not a forced fumble or it's not thought of as that, but anyway, fantastic game. Coke Bus player of the game, you went with Gesicki. He would have been somebody I definitely would have considered. I'm going to go with Chase Edmonds, 5 carries, 6 yards, and
drop touchdown.
I mean, it doesn't get a whole lot worse than that. I mean, and then Raheem Mostert, this is the second game in 3 weeks now that Mostert has clearly looked like the better back running the football. I think Edmonds is still a good weapon. I'm hoping to see him a lot more in the passing game, especially in dump offs, but yeah, certainly not great enough. And Paul, we'll see what happens. It's going to be, we're not going to have an opponent.
You gave the guy that got a touchdown the Coke Bus player?
Yeah, who cares?
I care.
That is pretty odd. One touchdown. It's Chase Edmonds. He gets the Coke bus player. Yeah. He had one. He had one good play and several bad ones.
I almost wish we could put Noah on the Coke bus, but he just can't seem to get himself a bus ticket to even be eligible.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So no opponent preview this week. I'm actually headed out of town. I'll be back for our Saturday morning preview of the Jets game, and we'll be back normal time on Sunday night recapping what will hopefully be a convincing win over the New York Jets. And that's going to do it for our breakdown.
Before you go, though, I'm not going to say exactly what, but guys, make sure you like and subscribe. There may be a couple little special episodes in between that if you get the notification, you guys can be here for. So just going to put that out there.
And be sure to look up the MetLife takeover.
Yes.
Dolphins NYC does a great job of that every year. It's going on, 10, 15 years, whatever it is. But
and you might meet a Paul Picken that looks nothing like me at the MetLife takeover. So if you see my dad, say hi to him.
Paul's going to that. I'm going to the Bears game later in the year.
I'm not going to the MetLife. I can't.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I'm in the middle of my own playoff push with a bunch of 10 and 11-year-olds right now.
That's right. Sorry, I missed that there. Yeah, but Paul's usually there. I'll be at the Bears game in Chicago this year in a few weeks. Hopefully that's also a convincing Dolphins win. But that's going to do it for a breakdown here of the Dolphins 27-15 loss over the Bengals. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is Fanatic_pick. Be sure to also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, all of our social media outlets, as well as the finfanatic.com website and the Fansided Network. If it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the Fin side.